New York has produced a bill that could force Chick-fil-A to be open on Sunday, and many people are freaking out about this, probably because there is a misunderstanding about the contents of the bill itself. People seem to believe that this bill would force all Chick-fil-A's in the state of New York to be open on Sunday. That is not true. The bill is meant to affect specific restaurants that line a 500-mile throughway in New York. That way they can support truckers and drivers. CNN reports several New York state lawmakers want to require restaurants at rest stops along the state's 500-mile throughway to stay open 7 days a week to serve drivers, including Chick-fil-A, which famously closes on Sundays. The traveling public and commercial trucking industry rely on these service areas to rest, refuel, and to purchase food and beverages, the bill says. The bill mentions Chick-fil-A's policy and says, while there is nothing objectionable about a fast food restaurant closing on a particular day of the week, service areas dedicated to travelers is an inappropriate location for such a restaurant. Chick-fil-A did not respond to a request for comment on the bill. The bill does not apply to all Chick-fil-A locations in New York or even impact the 7 that are currently operating along the state thruway. While Chick-fil-A's rest stop locations may have been the impetus, the bill instead would affect all future contracts for food concessions at transportation facilities owned by the state and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Tony Simone, the assembly member who introduced the bill, followed up by telling the Associated Press, it is meant to give travelers in New York a variety of food options, including healthy foods at rest stops, rather than an effort to eventually push Chick-fil-A out. The Associated Press also reported that retail company Applegreen recently entered into a 33-year contract with state's Thruway Authority and leases space to restaurants under that agreement, according to Authority spokesperson Jennifer Givner. Chick-fil-A will be able to operate within their normal hours under the contract. So it appears at the moment that Chick-fil-A's policies will remain intact unless they continue to build new locations on the thruway, which could fall under the new requirements. And honestly, if Chick-fil-A as a company had to choose, I would much rather see them not build any new locations there than to give in to the new requirements. I mean, if people have to live without Chick-fil-A for one day, I'm sure they will be just fine. Now, the reason that I talk about this is to save you from being outraged over something like this. There are plenty of other things to be outraged about. There are plenty of other things to be researching. I don't really think that you or the Republican lawmakers trying to push back against this bill should waste much time being concerned about this, because it's not as it seems. It is not what people are saying it is. It is not affecting Chick-fil-A the way that people say it is affecting Chick-fil-A. So I'm trying to steer you away from that and maybe to something a little more productive. Now, something I wanted to share before I end the video is I wanted to tell the brief story. This isn't the story of Chick-fil-A as a whole, but it is the story of how the closed on Sunday idea was implemented for Chick-fil-A as a business. And it was Truett Cathy himself, the founder of Chick-fil-A. He was the one that came up with the idea. And back before Chick-fil-A was Chick-fil-A, Truett Cathy owned a small diner, which is now called the Dwarf House. I believe it was called the Dwarf House back then as well. I've been there. It's in Atlanta, Georgia. It's a cool little place. It's kind of like an old-fashioned diner, and then also attached to it is a modern-looking Chick-fil-A. And Truett Cathy lived in the same building that the diner was in. I believe he lived in the upstairs portion of the building, and he was open 24/7 all hours of the day. And so if somebody came in early in the morning or late at night, he would get out of bed, go downstairs, and he would cook for them. And after a period of time, he realized that this was not a sustainable business model. Not necessarily on the money front, but for his personal life. It wasn't sustainable for his relationship with God or his relationship with his family. So he realized that there had to be a moment where he could reconnect himself with God and reconnect himself with his family. So he decided that from now on, that his diner and by extension, all Chick-fil-A locations will be closed on Sunday. And I think that if you believe in blessings, that is a huge plus for him to have enough wisdom, not only for himself, not only did it affect his life in a positive way, but it's also affected the lives of many people working at Chick-fil-A. I mean, they get a chance to reconnect with their families. They have the chance to go to church. They have a chance to rest. They have a chance to recalibrate. And I think there is a lot of wisdom to be gleaned from Truett Cathy's decisions and the way he ran his business. And if you're interested in learning more about the story, that's just a tiny, small little portion of the story. If you're interested in learning more about it, I would encourage you to go online and read. It's a really neat story. It's up there with some of the other great success stories of entrepreneurship. So I would encourage you to go read it, and it'd probably be within your best interest to spend your time reading about the story of Truett Cathy rather than being outraged about a bill that isn't really going to affect Chick-fil-A the way that people say.